The storm came in sideways, a white wall that erased the ridge and then the tree line, and then the shape of Layla walking just ahead of Maya. 1 minute there was a trail like a pencil line across the slope, the next there was just wind, snow, and a roar that had no source. Alex kept his ice axe ready as if that could anchor them to anything. Darmian, always the talker, fell into silence when the wind took his breath. They were only a couple of hours from the mountain hut marked on their map, a charity of weathered timber and creaking windows someone had assured them would be open year-round, but the hut was either off-trail or gone. Left, Maya yelled, pointing to a black smudge stabbing out of the drift. It was concrete, not timber, a low bunkered building, the kind of practical box that never tries to impress anyone, an old border police outpost. The days when men with mustaches and clipboards ruled the snow were long gone. But the door was there. Alex shouldered it. Hinges complained. They stumbled into stale air and shouted just to hear sound bounce off something other than the storm. The room was plain, 2 bunks with rotten slats, a rusted iron stove with a pipe punched through the cement wall, a desk with drawers that had swole shut, a nailed board with hooks, a map pinned and gone fox brown. Layla pulled off her gloves and flexed her fingers, then forced herself to pull them back on. Maya set down her pack, mechanical in how much she wanted warmth. Alex made a show of competence with the stove. "We need draw," he said, tapping the pipe. "If the chimney's blocked, we'll know fast." Darmian, curious even now, found the thing that would follow them, a crank-field telephone bolted under the desk, handset attached by a cloth-wrapped cord. The label plate read, L3, Lanija TRI. Another line in smaller print, Sluelica, Ruka. The Bakelite was cold through his glove. He cranked the handle out of instinct. A muted whine unspilled inside, something like a bee in a jar. "Don't," Maya said, her doctor's voice, even though she was still only a final-year student. "Let's get warm first." Just checking if the apocalypse came with a dial tone, Darmian smiled. He held the receiver to his ear, then shrugged. Hiss. That's all. They fed the stove with pencil-thin twigs from their kindling bag, then thicker deadwood Alex had strapped under his pack. Smoke trickled, then a thin ribbon, then a draw they could hear. In an hour the room flushed with the sort of heat that doesn't smell quite right, an old burnt tang mixed with dust. Still, their feet began to thaw enough to hurt. Layla set up her camera on the desk and took a shot of their boots lined by the door, a neat row that would look brave later. They listened for the change in the storm and didn't hear it. Darkness drifted down, lumpy as wet wool. They ate dry biscuits and cheap sausage with knife tips. They argued without energy about whether to bivvy here and wait for tomorrow. Maps came out, then went away. Every thought seemed wrapped in cotton. Alex said, "We checked the chimney once more," and climbed onto the desk to put his palm near the pipe. "Warm," he said. "It's pulling." Maya lay on the lowest bunk and let her neck release. She was thinking of how much she liked the honesty of winter. It didn't pretend to care for you, you either had your kit together or you didn't. She let herself slip toward sleep. Knock. They all heard it. A knuckle to wood. Calm, measured, as if someone didn't want to be rude. Then again, knock. Layla sat up. Alex reached for his headlamp and stabbed the beam at the door. The beam turned the slashes of kicked-in snow on the threshold into glitter. "Must be settling," Darmian said. His voice wanted to make the sensible explanation true. The third knock was softer, almost tentative. Maya swung her legs down and stood before she realized she was moving. "Who is it?" she called, feeling the ridiculousness even as she said it. The wind answered in its way, pressing at the cracks and then withdrawing. The field telephone rang. It was a shy, old-fashioned triplet of bells, as if the sound had been waiting patiently under years of dust and decided, now, with the knocks, it had permission. The 4 friends looked at one another, the way people look when something becomes shared all at once. Darmian reached for the handset. His fingers hovered and shook in the lamplight. "Don't," Maya repeated, too late to be authority, just a reflex. He lifted the receiver and put it to his ear. He listened, and the expression on his face went blank and young. "What?" Alex said. Darmian swallowed. "There's a woman," he said. "She's crying." Chapter 2, The Line. They crowded around the desk as if a square of wood could protect them. Darmian's mouth was open in the shape of listening. He put the receiver against his shoulder, like he'd seen in movies where people bought time by controlling the angle of their hearing. "Hello," he said, as if a universal hello could cut through decades and meters of buried wire. "We can hear you." At first there were only the small sounds, breath, a hitching, the faint scrape of something like cloth against the mic. Then the woman's voice settled into words. "Naavarajed, don't open," she said. The accent was local, or nearly, the kind that moves vowels like stones in a pocket. "Not the third. 2 is good. The third is not us." "What do you mean?" Layla asked without thinking, as if they were in the same room and the woman could see her. "The cornice fell," the voice said. "We went out on the third. The line is still alive." "You hear it?" The wire sings. "Please. We are cold." Wind wrote on the walls. Omer, who did not like being told by anything with less than full authority, leaned in. "Where are you?" he said. "Which ridge?" "We can't see our hand." "There's a map. If you can tell us the name." The voice made a noise sheared between a laugh and a sob. "It doesn't have a name now," she whispered. "Not for us." The line clicked once. A thin electronic mosquito keened in the background. The voice returned. "2 knocks," she said, and her words slowed, as if they were pulling through a thick medium. "Open for 2. Not the third." The connection thinned to breath and then to nothing. The little bell in the phone did a final tired tremble. "I don't like it," Alex said. "Someone's playing." "Who is up here to play?" Layla asked, more sharply than she intended. She was thinking of the portrait series she wanted to shoot of mountaineers' hands after winter, the cracked knuckles, the odd burns. Images made sense when voices didn't. Darmian, ever the collector of context, tugged at the stuck drawer. The wood let go with a tear and revealed a wrinkle of paper, a logbook bound with a rusted coil. He opened it with care. There were dates written in a cramped hand, the last entries from a winter in the mid-1980s, months before Maya or Layla were born. Most of the entries were weather notes, patrol schedules, codes. The handwriting changed, then changed back. There were a few recorded complaints about supplies. Then a shift in tone, a phrase halfway down a page, cornice fracture above line 3 crossing. 3 men out. 2 returned. Do not open for the third knock. Under it, a name, a signature that bled into the paper like something still trying to sink. They went quiet, each in their own way. For Maya the quiet was for her father, a man who went into danger because it was asked and never punished the world for asking. For Alex it was the kind of quiet he had when a new equation suddenly fit. For Layla, quiet was a lens cap she put on to stop herself from taking the wrong shot. For Darmian, quiet was a tube that ran from then to now, and he could taste the metal. "Ritual," Alex said, too loud. "Like soldiers do." A superstitious line in a book. Maya looked at the stove and then at the pipe. "We're staying," she said. "We're not in shape to fumble around in that whiteout. We'll answer 2 knocks. Not 3. It's dumb, but so is getting ourselves killed to prove we're braver than a story." "Fine by me," Layla said. She went to the door and pressed her ear against the cold metal. "It's quiet." The storm did what storms do. It wore them down by steady attention. They slept in shifts, though nobody admitted that's what they were doing. An hour later, the door shuddered like someone had leaned a shoulder against it from outside. Once. Twice. Then a third time that felt uncommitted, a test. Maya stood and shook her head. Omer's eyes glittered with a mixture of curiosity and defiance. He had already unlatched the first hook. "Don't," Maya said, calmly. "We made a rule." He let the hook rest. They heard steps outside. Or they heard settling snow. Interpretation was a contest they didn't know they'd entered. Layla killed her headlamp and counted with her breath. In the new dark, the stove's little orange heart looked friendly and a bit sick. The field phone rang again around 3. The old bell sounded timid, contrite. Darmian answered, as if he were the one who had offended it. The voice was clearer, less swaddled with static. "You're 4, she said. You should stay 4. How do you know we're 4? Darmian asked. He didn't mean for his voice to carry fear, it just did. There was a long exhale from the other side. We were 3, the woman said. But we counted 4 when we listened. Someone was at the door. He was polite. 3 times. She coughed delicately, almost embarrassed. We opened. The line clicked again. Darmian kept listening long after the others would have put the receiver down. When he finally returned the handset to the cradle, he pressed his palm flat on the logbook entry as if persuading it not to move. The room's warmth felt thinner, as if some part of it had stepped outside. Sleep, Maya ordered because she needed to say a word that could still be in order. We need to be smart in the morning. Not long after, she dreamed she heard a hand patting the wall behind her head, finding the studs like a carpenter. 1. 2. Then a thoughtful pause. Chapter 3, The Wire. Morning was a lighter kind of gray that pretended to be a truce. When Alex cracked the door, Spindrift lapped at his boots like a tide. The sky had no edges. He followed his headlamp beam a few steps out to see if there were traces of anything human. In the smooth sheet of snow, there was a line of prints that circled the outpost and doubled back. They were not new, edges rounded by night wind, but they were not theirs, or not in the rhythm of their arrival yesterday. The gate looked like someone pacing, counting boards. Just ours? Layla asked, and then caught herself. No. Not ours. Wolves, Alex said, unhelpfully. Wolves wear boots? Darmian asked. Maya watched the vapor of their breath tilt sideways. The stove had sulked all night, needing a coaxing that felt too intimate. Her head ached, a band pulled tight across her eyebrows. She lifted the stove lid and frowned at the way the flames dithered. Omer, she said, check the pipe again. He did, climbing onto the desk like a goat. Warm, he said. Maybe a little backflow. That could be enough, Maya replied. She could hear her professor's voice, a list of symptoms spoken too quickly to catch, accompanied by a diagram of a heme molecule on a whiteboard. Headache. Dizziness. Confusion. She looked at their red cheeks and unfocused eyes. We need more air. We crack the window. Alex didn't like it. He liked tight systems, not intentional leaks. But he helped wedge a knife into the swollen sash and lever it to a narrow surrender. A blade of clean air cut through the room. The stove sulked harder. They added layers and pretended the air felt good. Around midday the phone rang, 2 quick bells like someone impatient with their own fear. Darmian snatched the handset. We're here, he said. You keep counting wrong, the voice said. You say 4. We are 4, he said, shoulders rising. Then don't listen when he uses your names. The line cracked. He learns fast. The door made a small movement like something had leaned it with an ear. 1 knock. Nothing. Another knock. The third was very soft, polite again, as if the knocker didn't want to break the spell they were under, only participate. Not the third, Layla whispered, and didn't know why she had said it aloud. They ate, huddled. Thoughts came slower. Layla, who almost never slept in the day, fell off the edge of a chair and into a dream where someone was asking her to come outside because the light was perfect. Maya shook her awake, too hard. Stay with us. I'm fine, Layla lied. By late afternoon the wind softened. Darmian stood with his coat on, staring at the door like it was a math problem he too could solve by applying the correct insistence. He moved the hook. "I'll just look," he said. "No heroics." The cold stepped in like a cat when he opened the door a crack. The snow outside was an even field. His boot went down, then down again. Layla grabbed the back of his coat and pulled. Darmian shook free with a jerk she would later forgive because she had to. He took 3 steps and stopped, head tilted. "Do you hear it?" he said. "Hear what?" Alex called after him. "The wire," Darmian said. "It hums." He walked toward the corner of the outpost where a junction box was bolted to the wall, then toward the black line that led up to a broken pole and farther to the ghost of a mast on a small rise. "It's singing." He took one more step and disappeared to his knees as the crust broke over a buried trough. Maya swore and went after him. Alex hauled her back by her shoulder strap. "Rope," he said, very sane. "We do this with rope." They clipped in, threaded belts, spoke each not out loud. It felt good to put names to actions. They moved as a unit toward the mast. Half the structure had folded, a jag of aluminum cranked down by weather so it leaned like a man thinking about his mistakes. The guy wires hummed in the wind with a voice that was easy to call a human voice if you wanted to. Beyond the mast was a low, elongated bump that might have been a drift, might have been a collapsed roof. Darmian took a step closer, testing with his pole. Something black under the snow nudged up, a bracket, an insulator, a glass bell jar scalloped like a memory. The wire from the phone dove under the drift and sang. Maya touched her forehead. The headache was a finger pressing. "We go back," she said. "We're getting foggy. All of us." On the way back, Darmian started talking to someone none of them could see. "Layla," he said, "I'm here, I'm coming, stay where you are." He turned his head the way you turn it when you hear your name spoken behind you. Maya grabbed his arm. "She's right there," Maya said, nodding toward their friend panting in his wake. "No," he said. "The other one." They hauled him inside with more impatience than care, because fear affects how you hold the people you love. Maya forced him to drink, then to breathe slow, then to keep his eyes on her finger. He could do all of that, which made it worse. "We shut down the stove," Maya said. "Open the window more. We live with the cold." They did. The warmth leaked out. Their breath settled on the window like milk. The phone rang twice and they didn't answer. Then it rang with the insistence of someone who has calculated your habits and wants to pry them open. Darmian reached for it again with a child's hungry focus. Maya smacked his hand. He looked at her with a glare he would later pretend had been at someone else. Night came early, 1 hour falling onto the next like a stack of plates. They took turns speaking to stay real. Ulmer, grudgingly, began the story of how his grandfather had knocked twice on his newlywed door and made a joke about the third knock being for when children came. Layla talked about a photograph she had never been able to take because it felt like stealing. Darmian didn't tell a story. He closed his eyes and pictured the mast wires like strings on an instrument anyone could play if the wind taught them the notes. When he stood and moved toward the door, Maya was asleep. The door opened to a white nothing that had the shape of an invitation. They woke up in a world that had lost a person. The shape of it was immediate and wrong, the rope was uncoiled by the door and the hooks were unhooked. The wind had changed and the snow had smoothed over the line of steps that might have showed where he'd gone. Darmian's pack was still here, his hat was not. Maya's first thought was anger sharp enough to taste. Her second was the memory of his eyes last night, a little too glassy, a little too eager to agree with a voice that knew his name. She put the anger down like a useful tool she might need later. "We go together," she said. "No sprinting. Ulmer, you lead. Clip me second. Layla third." They moved into the white like teeth into cloth. The mast felt farther in daylight, as if distances had stretched like rubber. Near the base, a shape interrupted the smoothness. For one ugly second Maya thought it was a mound that meant a body. Then it shifted and became Darmian himself, sitting with his back against a tilt of aluminum, his head down like he was listening to the ground. "Hey," Layla called softly, as if they were waking someone under a quilt. Darmian. Look at us. He lifted his head. His face was pale blue around the lips. He smiled at Layla first, not at the one who spoke, and Maya hated how poor an omen that felt. I heard you, he said to Layla. You were telling me to come. Your voice was small. It was under the ground. No, Layla said, kneeling. I was right there next to you, snoring. I'm not that nice when I'm awake. They got him up. His legs wobbled. He kept looking over their shoulders, past them, as if someone was standing at the outpost door waiting to be let in and he didn't want to be rude. We're 5, he whispered, without ceremony, as if saying how old he was. They got him inside and forced hot, too sweet tea into him. Maya counted his pulse under her thumb and counted her own fear under her breath. She opened the window until the room felt like outside, then opened it more. The stove went out with a sulky cough as if scolding them for their lack of faith. The air grew knife-cold and their heads cleared fast and cruel. Darmian fell asleep with a shocked expression, like he had been interrupted in the middle of a sentence. Late morning, clearer than any hour yet, they packed to leave. Their plan was simple: follow the pole line down until it intersected the Forest Service road, then go along the road until it became something that had a plowed concept. It was the sort of plan only marginally better than staying. The field phone rang while Maya was shouldering her pack. She looked at it as if it had rolled by itself from under the bed. Omer, impulsive and affectionate in his own unadvertised way, tucked the handset into his jacket like a mascot, the way people take a broken key they can't bear to throw away. Don't, Maya started, then stopped. Something like fatalism had crept into the room, as if decisions now had less weight. They stepped out. The sky had found a color. The wire above them hummed at a pitch that changed with each step. Once, the hum dipped, and in the dip the voice squeezed through like light under a door. 2 is good, it said. Not the third. They didn't answer. At the first low stand of trees, a wall of sound smacked them in the chest, the muffled, ground-swallowed boom of moving snow far off. They crouched by instinct, as if ducking could protect them from a mass measured in trucks. The slope across the small valley sported a raw white wound where a cornice had let go. We go when it's quiet, Alex said, as if quiet could be their ally. They made it to the Forest Service road by noon, a depression in the snow like a scar on pale skin. In the trees the wind fell apart and became harmless. The phone in Omer's jacket hummed and clicked occasionally, as if clearing its throat to speak in the old language of magnet and bell. They followed the road. It delivered them past an iron cross grown into a pine and a small weathered marker that said, in carved and faded letters, 3 names and a year that matched the logbook. One of the first names looked like Layla if you read it quick, and she read it quick on purpose and then refused to look again. Maya made herself read all 3. It felt like a respect to the dead and a warning to the living. 2 kilometers farther down they heard the chew of an engine. A snowcat appeared, orange against the pines, then stopped with too much relief. A man climbed down from the cab and stood there as if he didn't want to spook them. He had the sort of competence that makes other people breathe easier. You 4? He asked. Yes, Maya said, and the word came out with a question mark she didn't intend. Good, he said. We counted 4 on the radio. He looked them over deliberately, the way a triage nurse looks, and then frowned at the outpost. You slept with the stove? Just until morning, Maya said. Then we opened up. Headaches. Confusion. CO, he nodded. Happens. The old chimneys choke with ice. You're lucky. You were clever. He glanced at the handset peeking from Omer's jacket. What's that? Souvenir, Alex said. The operator made a face that said he had a habit of leaving ghosts where he found them. Then, kind of funny, he added, scratching his cheek. I logged something odd an hour ago. Old line chirped at the station. We keep the switchboard for weather sensors, but these masts are dead. Still, I wrote it because I don't like not writing. It said, 2 knocks good. Not the third. I didn't say it. No one at the station did. I just heard it. Maya felt a small hollow open under her breastbone, the kind that takes words and drops them down a well. The woman, she said. What woman? He asked. She didn't answer. They climbed into the snowcat. The heater gave them a heat that smelled like fuel and clean filters and safety. Bellies unclenched. Darmian fell asleep with his head on Maya's shoulder. Layla took out her camera and scrolled without thinking, a tick to keep her fingers from shaking. Between shots of boots and rope and the outpost door, there was a frame she didn't remember taking, the threshold in the gray dawn, the swirl of blown snow so slow the shutter made it look like water. In the right corner, in the smudge that might have been motion, was a figure that might have been a trick of light. The figure leaned its forehead to the door in a posture that was not menace exactly, but patience. Delete it, Alex said, over her shoulder, as if that could delete the fact of it. Later, she said. Back in the mountain town, the operator put them through the ritual of being sure they were fine. Hot tea. Questions that proved they could count backward and remember their names. On the way out, he handed Maya the logbook they'd left on his desk. You forgot this, he said. Or maybe you wanted me to keep it. Either way, take it. Otherwise the story will drive me crazy. She took it. Partway down the main street, someone wrapped a radiator in a cafe with a spoon to signal an order was ready. Once. Twice. There was a pause. Then a third time, polite and patient. Maya closed the logbook against her chest and told herself she was too old to jump at cafe noises. She told herself carbon monoxide and fear and old stories were enough to explain anything. She told herself the fifth shape in the photograph was a smear of snow in motion, a trick of exposure, a weather thing. She told herself all of that and believed most of it. That night, back in her apartment, the heater woke with a sigh and the pipes clinked with the starting up of heat. One knock, an old building saying it was still here. Two knocks, metal extending into its winter shape. Maya held her breath for no good reason at all. Then a third, soft as though it did not want to be impolite.